What's good, guys? This is Chats with Your Favorite Realtor now, and today I've got my favorite architect and my favorite project manager. I'd like to introduce you to them. The architect goes by the name of Tanash. He'll introduce himself to you guys, and we also do have Mandla, who is a project manager as well. Tanash, do you want to tell them who you are?
Sure. Thanks. What's up, guys? It's Tinashe, the architect here, and I specialize in residential architecture.
What's up, guys? How's it? Mandla here, the project manager. If you've got anything that needs to be built or put together, we manage it all the way. Thank you.
Okay, nice, guys. So before we get into it, let's just ease into the conversation. Tanash, I'll start with you. You know, we've worked with each other for some time. Perhaps do you want to just elaborate what an architect is to the people at home so they can kind of understand a little bit much more better? And then I'll come to Mandla as well, just to ask him to also elaborate on the same point as well. So on your side, care to elaborate to them and tell them what an architect is and what your job is and what you need to achieve.
Okay, sure. So an architect basically is a built environment professional who's responsible for not only designing buildings, but coordinating in how you actually put the building together, how you're going to build it. So typically on a project, you are designing, you're getting all the necessary statutory compliances, and then you're advising the client on how best to build it in terms of your procurement strategy. And then when you're done, all the compliances again, so you can move in.
Okay. And let's say for someone out there who's looking to be an architect, what would they need to study, or what would they need to take in high school and going into varsity, to become an architect?
So for me, what worked well for me, I studied technical drawing.
Okay.
So that was quite useful, but you don't necessarily need to do that. You need to have like an artistic side, and you also need to have a science side. So there's an art and a science to it. So your typical subjects of your maths and your science.
That's a major.
Definitely get you through. But yeah, you definitely mustn't be too shy to work with the pen.
Okay. And Mandla, you are a project manager, as they said. As Tinashe also mentioned to me, please inform the people out there watching what a project manager is and what qualifications do you need to become a project manager as well.
Sure. Yeah, look, I think once you've gotten your design done by the architect, so to speak, in fact, project managers get involved earlier on within the whole life cycle. But what project management is, it deals with, I think, let me just say, three core things that really worry the client or the person that's building. So we attend to issues relating to time. Obviously, when you go into a project, you want it to start at a specific time and end at a specific time. And to be able to do that, you need to employ certain strategies to make sure that at least that time element is well managed. We also deal with issues around the budget.
Okay.
I mean, there's no ways you're going to build anything if you don't have a budget. So one of the key things is managing budget. In other words, delivering within the time, but also within budget.
Okay.
But also what's key is the quality. In other words, that thing that's being delivered by the project. So those are the three core that's managed in project management.
Okay.
The quality, the time, and the budget.
Okay. And the reason, obviously, I called both of you guys onto the podcast today, I just felt like there's a disconnect between all three of us, but all three of us work aligned and we align with each other, And that's the main reason I also wanted to find out, not just for myself, but for the viewers out there as well, just in terms of explaining the process, because like, as you know, we work for Stoic Realty. We're very dominant in the Eye of Africa. As you know, there's a lot of vacant land that is there. And I feel something that I've picked up as of recent is that you'll get the sellers or buyers or a purchaser coming to me and saying, what is the process, And I think this is not just to educate the people out there, but it's also to educate myself as well, to kind of understand what your process is as the architect and what processes need to go into from start till end, and what's coming after you would be then Mandla as the project manager, how to handle the whole situation. So I'll just shoot a few questions that I think would help people understand better and would help myself also understand better. I don't know if you guys would mind if I just do one with one. Then we can just take it from there. So Tinashe, I'm just going to start with you just to kind of find out and kind of get an idea in terms of, can you share some insights in terms of how an architectural design can enhance a price of a property? And on your side, how do you feel that would affect the price of a property?
Okay, so I think there are a couple of things that clients need to be aware of in terms of architectural design. So you've got a vision, you've got an idea of what you want your property to look like,
Okay.
but at the end of the day, it needs to work. So as an architect, you need to create functional spaces that work well. And you need to incorporate elements which are speaking to what your clients want. So, simple example: you've got a lounge, and then you're worried about heating.
True.
How do you resolve that? Do you underfloor heating, and what are the considerations of that over the life cycle? Given our issues with ESCOM. Do you do a fireplace? I mean, some people have had bad experiences with fireplaces growing up, so that's something that they'll be adverse to with the ordinary, like wood burning. What would be the next alternative? Maybe perhaps suggest something like a gas fireplace. So you actually need to be understanding what the client actually needs and propose a solution which works best for them. Another thing as well will be your effective space utilization. So your work, like Mandla indicated, you're working with a budget.
Yes.
And you've got your wish list and you've got your needs list. So we also need then just to whittle that down to say, okay, what do we need versus what do we
want?
What can we afford? So maybe you're jiggling to say, okay, what's more important? Is the man cave more important than a study area, or how do you create multifunctional spaces that at some point in time it's a man cave, then or it can be a study, or and also understand that what might be important to you now might change as time progresses. So if you're looking at like a young couple with young kids, it might be a good idea to have that bedroom for your firstborn child next to you, but as they grow up and they're teenagers and with a lot of noise, it might not be a good idea. So you also just need to be thinking of that as well in terms of what the long-term vision of it. And I think nowadays you're finding that the asset pricing of a house is starting to become a bit more nuanced. We're starting to talk about sustainability now. I think ESCOM has taught us,
very true.
Yeah, has taught us like a big lesson. So something like your solar, your rainwater harvesting is not so far fetched, and it's actually within reach. So depending on where you are, those are design elements which you maybe need to be incorporating. So yeah, I think at the end of the day, something that's well designed, regardless of whatever style it is going to be is going to stand the test of time, and you get your money back. But you just need to be asking the right questions, not be afraid to ask the right questions in whatever solution that you have.
I like the way that you paraphrase that, because I feel on my side as a real estate agent, I also kind of go through something very similar, where I will get clients, who come to the estate, will pass these houses, all these beautiful houses, and want exactly that, And meanwhile, yes, it can be beautiful, but it's practical for the person who stays there, And most people, they just feel that, okay, I just want that. No, what's practical to you? And that's what I also try to bring to clients and say, all of us want houses, all of us want beautiful houses, but we also need to look at the essentials. The essentials are very, very important. Like you're saying now, we're in an era now that you're finding yourself not thinking about things like solar. You know, 5 years ago, not a lot of people thought about putting solars in their house, putting all these certain things just to make sure that they sort it. But now it is a big concern going forward. So I think also thinking ahead and getting professional help, it's something that I spoke about in one of my videos that I did last week as well, is that you really do need to have professionals on hand. You know, having professionals on hand can just make everything much more smoother for you, because I've come across so many clients that have been burnt through trying to do this and trying to do that. And yes, if you can get a shortcut, it's nice. Yes, I'm not gonna lie, it is nice. But if you can do it the right way and pay a little bit more, I think why not take it? I don't know how you guys feel about that. But personally, I just think having a professional will make everything better instead of just taking a shortcut.
Look, this is maybe another way to look at it. Your house is probably going to be in terms of an investment, slightly more pricey than what you're going to be spending for a car. Nobody takes any shortcuts when you want to be purchasing your vehicle, but for some odd reason you would choose not to be doing that same route to
your property.
To your property. Look, becoming an architect, it's 6-7 years of academic study plus another year of work experience before you write your board exams for you to qualify.
So you're chasing doctor level there. chasing
You're
doctor levels
chasing
there.
doctor level. So in as much as you would Google if you've got a pain in the chest, but if it's prolonged, then you're not gonna try and Google yourself out. So
Okay.
I would say, yeah, you eventually catch yourself out. You, like you said, a client will say, I like this,
Okay.
but we need to go a couple of levels deeper to say, why do you like that? What is it that you like about that? And like you said, does that work for you?
Yeah, but it also gets very difficult at times as well. And I'm speaking just on my side, you know, as a real estate agent, you know. Sometimes clients don't want to hear the cold hard truth. You know, when you're going deeper and getting deep, they don't want to hear those things. They don't want to hear that you don't need a man cave. It's not practical for you. I don't see it being practical for you. You have 4 kids, 5 kids. Going forward, it's not going to be something that's very practical for you. But right now, yes, it makes sense. And I think for me personally, I've just taken it as, okay, you know what, I'll let you do you, but as a professional, I'll jump in where I need to and make sure that I can kind of not have more complaints at the end, because I'm expecting complaints, you know. I'm a realtor. I deal with it on a basis. I deal with it on a daily basis, like I say. And something like that for me, I think it's very important as well to jot down that that's why I keep going back to the thing. I like what you said about you need to be practical. I think these days we see what we see on social media and we want that. We see what we see when we pass houses and stuff. And it's a journey. You know, I always tell my clients it's a journey. You can't move from 400,000 and go to 8 million rand, you know. There's in between steps, but I'm there to help you through that process. So moving from your 800,000, going to your 1 million, going to your 1.5, going to your 2 million, then getting to the point where I then say, right, let's start looking at a house or building land. And then that's when I put you guys involved. You know, we've done a couple of deals like that. And that's, I think, the biggest thing that I also want to start doing with real estate as well, is that kind of showing people that let's start giving you guys value. I just feel it's not just a buying process. It's not just, okay, here and we done type of thing. There's so much more to it. And yeah, I just personally feel that. But I don't know how you guys feel. As a project manager, I think you have similar thought processes.
Okay, I'm gonna hog the mic a bit.
The man doesn't want anything today.
Yeah, so it's a fine line that you're rocking as a professional. You obviously not imposing my ideas on how a client should be living, but you want to be educating them so that you're making an informed decision. So you're coming forward to us to say, look, this is my budget.
Okay.
versus this is what I would want to do, then we can then quickly interrogate that and ask the question, say, okay, so your budget and your wish list, this is where we're seeing the disconnect.
Okay.
If there is a disconnect, then a decision needs to be made. But at least you can see where that is. It's not like just thumbs up.
Okay.
So we can quickly be doing that where you've got your wish list and your brief. You can quickly put some figures to say, okay, based on what you're saying, this is roughly the size house that you're looking at, and this is your budget. Are we within or without? And then you can start making those hard decisions.
Those hard decisions. Okay. Before you hog the mic, let me quickly ask Mandla something. So Mandla, I just want to find out from you as well. You know, like I said, I'm just gonna split the questions.
Sure.
So on your side, can you like share some experience managing real estate projects, and what were some of the key challenges that you faced on your real estate projects? Can include anywhere, anything's fine.
Yeah, look, real estate projects. So within the construction space,
Yeah.
real estate projects or residential projects are quite special.
Okay.
And in the sense that you build them differently, you manage them differently. I think even from a design perspective and in tonight's side, you also design them differently. Because in our experience over the years, we found that they're a lot more emotional than the other projects. You know, there's a husband and wife involved, or there's an individual involved and stuff like that. And something I just want to touch on quickly is that some of the problems that we picked up is that the professionals get involved too late in the project.
Okay.
Okay. Yes, they may have the architect up there, and they may a lot of the problems we face is that some of the clients say to the architect, "All I want you to do is to design and give me the design, and I'll take it from there." And they're cutting off a lot of what the architect can provide, kind of going forward, in the sense that as the build is going, you'd like the architect to be part of it so that they can see what they designed and see that to fruition. Should there be any slight challenges or whatever, the architect at least is close by to be able to say, this is how we can adjust, this is how we can change it. So one of the big challenges is involving your project manager or not involving a project manager at all.
True.
That's one problem. Or involving your project manager too late in the project. And the reason why I say that is that within the residential space, or at least where I get involved in the residential space, is that we've got the competence and the capacity to work out your costings.
Okay.
So when the architect, if we get involved earlier on, you will tell the architect what you want done. Okay. Together with the architect as professionals, we're able to look at that within a short space of time and say, this build of yours, the estimate budget is probably 11,000 Rand a square meter, or we say it's probably 4 million Rand. And if your budget was 3.5, we're then able to look at it together and see how we can still give you aesthetically and functionally something that you wanted, but manage the budget. If you get what I'm saying.
No, I understand.
And the other second problem we face a lot is where you get clients who say, I've got an architect, I've got a builder who's going to do labor only, and I will probably manage the project myself. And then towards halfway through the project, they realize, this is actually more difficult. I don't have enough time, or it's going to shoot my budget. Then they call us in, they haul us in, and they expect us to kind of do magic. But if you think about it, half the damage is done already. So we can only save the portion that's not complete.
I think that's very true what you're saying, because on my side, I have had situations, especially like with half-built properties within Isle of Africa, and you'll get clients like, I can't take this, I can't do it, please get rid of it for me, sell it, give it to someone who has another vision. And I think most of the time those scenarios were people that didn't play it out well. I have noticed that, listen, you can't do everything. Let the professionals do the professional. What I believe in, I can't go to a hospital and go tell the doctor, please operate here. No, that's his job.
Cut me here and not...
not here. Yeah. Cut me. You know, I can't do that. And I think that's the biggest thing that most people don't want to come to realization of, that, you know what, it might be an extra... call it whatever the amount is that you're putting into the investment, but it just makes the job much easier, because you know that you're giving that person that service and that time, and you know that the person's going to be happier to do things by yourself. Because I once had a client as well telling me that hey, I can't, I'm doing a house is the worst thing, building from scratch, I'd rather buy a house. But it's because they didn't let someone else handle that for them and just get a finished product,
Precisely.
It's not like, even if you're looking at the vehicle industry, you don't get to BM and say, okay, it's half done, give it to me, let me sort it. You let them give you a proper finished product.
Yeah.
So I think if people can also just look into taking that extra step, and that's why I'm happy that you are here, because I don't think that a lot of people do know about project managers,
So within the residential space, I think in this country, that whole competency of project management
Yes.
is not there and given to a specific individual as a role. So within the residential space, what's happening predominantly is that the owners are the ones who do part of the project management.
Okay.
And the ones that are fortunate where they have the architect operating as a principal agent,
Yes.
that kind of helps only to a certain extent because he's also limited to what they can do. But what I find as a big gap is that you find a lot of clients saying, it's fine, I know where to get material, I know what to buy, I get a discount, I get a good price. So it's not necessarily about that. We believe, because we're in the space, I don't think as a client, unless they work there, who can get stuff probably cheaper than we can because of the relationships we have. But over and above that, it's the integrity of the materials that they get. You've got to make sure that you get the right thing. Yes, as specified and so forth. But if you don't play around that whole budget game that I'm talking about, where you allow the professional to go in and say, this is our budget, how are we going to achieve it? So we get into the procurement, we get into the design, and we get into the actual construction itself. So some of the problems we pick up is you get onto a site and the hands that are on site aren't competent enough to deliver the complexity of the project.
Okay.
So residential projects are a lot more complex in terms of there's too many corners.
True.
If I had to build, let's say, a hall or a commercial building,
Yeah.
I'd probably put in 10 times more materials, excuse me, in that project in half the time that it would take me to build a house. So a commercial project would probably be, for example, 40 million rand, and a residential house is 4 million rand. I'd probably be able to complete a commercial project as far as time frame is concerned before I complete a house. That's why I'm saying residential and commercial or industrial buildings are very, very different, and the management of the residential project is very complex, which surprises me as to why they don't employ competent or the competency of a project manager, which is why Tinashe and I have been working over the years to come up with a solution that would work within the residential space, where we collaborate right from the beginning. In other words, where he designs, I already know what the client's budget is. And as he designs, we collaborate to ensure that whatever is being designed is within that budget space.
The budget space, yeah.
So you were talking about value and the fact that by employing professionals, you tend to pay more. Again, over the years and working out how residential projects are constructed, again, we've worked out that if you do it properly, you bring in an architect, you bring in a PM, and you bring in an engineer, and they work collaboratively, you could still deliver that project at the same value. But what you take away is the pain. We believe if you're going to build a house, it should be an experience that you cherish. It should be a good experience.
It should be a joyful.
You should be a joyful experience. I think that's a term. Be able to drive through every weekend to have a look at what's done, and it's done on time, and it's exactly what you're looking for, all because of the collaboration and the transparency. So the way we deliver projects, we go in and everything is transparent. I mean, if we had time, we'd explain to you how we actually do it, such that at the end of the day, you deliver your project at that value that you're delivering, but you've included the competency of an architect and the competency of project manager and a structural engineer.
I like that, because I think for me personally, that's how I built a relationship with Tinashe, because I could see that competence. I'm a person that if I'm going to refer you to a client, I need to know that my client's in good hands, because already I'm giving that service of excellency. I expect someone that I pass on to also deliver that level of excellency. And that's why I'm trying to also, for any realtor out there or who's looking at this, I'm also trying to educate them and kind of show them that we can all work together and we kind of should have a synergy. You shouldn't be that type of agent to be like, I don't know any architect. You go find it by yourself.
Yeah.
You know, and if you can make it a joy, like that's the biggest thing for me. I love when a client comes to a house and they're smiling and, you know, it's like, it's a very big investment, guys. This is a very big investment. Even building is a very big investment, you know, buying a house or building. So I just think that's the biggest thing for me that I've taken from working with Tinashe, that he's very competent and, you know, he moves forward. And that's the biggest thing that people need to also look at, that you need from start till end. So I'm going to stop the questions just for 2 seconds, just to kind of, because I wanted to do this on the podcast. On my side, I'm going to discuss in terms of buying a vacant land. And then I'd like Tinashe to come just in terms of the process of the actual, right after the registration has happened, and then coming on to you to do the project management. So basically, for the people watching out there, to buy a vacant land in South Africa, you need to understand the fact that the banks don't finance it at 100%. The banks finance it at 60%, but you do have to have a deposit of 40%. So that's one very big factor that you always have to take in. And from that, obviously, once you paid your deposit and then you've done your bond and everything, the guarantees and everything go through, and then the registration happens, that's when then I would refer Tinashe towards you. So Tinashe, on that side, once everything has went through, everything's successful, everything goes well, on your side from registration, what then happens then?
Okay, so ideally,
on an ideally basis, yeah, let's keep it there.
let's keep it ideal. So ideally, we as an architect or architects, we can actually offer a service where we are working with the client through the identification of the property. Okay. So you come to us and say, I want to build, this is my vision, this is the estate I have identified, and I'm looking at 1 or 2 properties. I'm not decided on which one to pick.
Okay.
We can be coming in at that stage and do an evaluation and say, based on what you're saying, we're seeing that this one is probably going to be the one that's best suited. Okay. But in the instance that the client has decided for themselves to say, this is the property that I've picked, and that whole process has gone through, when we then come in and you've purchased your property, typically in an estate, your estate would have your guidelines in terms of what are the development parameters. So every property that's registered in South Africa falls under some sort of municipality, and there would be development parameters in terms of what the maximum footprint, height, and all of that. Okay. And your architectural guidelines would be covering that. So we would then be coming in and discussing with you your budget to say this, what is your budget for the build? Okay. And what is your list of your accommodation schedule? We are trying to be developing a brief for that. Okay. So the purpose of the brief is for us to be able to marry your budget versus what it is that you wish to do. And parallel to that, then we are also putting together a lookbook. So okay. What you're saying, your client would say, I like this, I like that. Why is it that why is it that you like that? What is it about that tickles your fancy? Okay. And as well stuff that you don't like, to say, look, I don't like this or I don't like that, and we need to be understanding that. Okay. So as a professional, it's you need to be working with somebody who you're quite comfortable with. I think Mandla mentioned that a house is very emotional.
Yes, and very emotional.
For varying reasons. You're either maybe upscaling, downscaling. So whatever reasons that you're building, we need to be walking through you, and we need to understand what it is that you're doing, so that when we're delivering our solutions, it's speaking to your personal experience for that. As well. And then in addition to that, if we, as we're developing the brief, we are also advising you to say, these are the additional consultants that we are probably going to need. For a residential, you're probably looking at, as well as for your structural engineer and your project manager as well.
I was about to jump in and say, so ideally, I know Mandla said, if the project manager can be involved with the architect from get-go, then things can be a smooth journey, a smooth road, no bumps and stuff like that. So just passing it on to Mandla, in an ideally world that you're working with an architect like Tinashe and you guys go into it together, then from that process of from registration to going to Tinashe, then to coming to you, then what would your role be in that moment? How would you then take it from there?
Okay, so in with a scenario like that, that would be perfect.
Yeah.
Because what's happening traditionally, just for 2 seconds,
Yeah,
is
yeah.
that after the architect's done, then the client immediately starts looking for a builder
Yes.
and say,
yes.
okay, I want this builder, I want that builder. Can you guys give me a quotation? The builders will give a quotation based on their understanding of what Tinashe has designed.
You also are a building contractor, eh?
Yes, so that's where the background comes from.
Okay.
Right. So builder number one will give a price. Builder number two will give a price. Builder number three will give a price. And those prices, if you had to interrogate them, you'll probably find that they're looking at them very differently. Okay. And chances are you tend to go for the cheaper one. And then as you start building, you realize, oh, he didn't include this, and he didn't include that, and he didn't include that. Okay. And if you had to speak to a lot of guys who built their houses, they'll probably tell you that their budget was exceeded by 10, 15, 20% from when they started. So what we propose and what we've worked with and what's worked very well is that we work together with the architect as they're designing. Okay. And once they've designed, we come in and our role then becomes one of together to say, we need a structural engineer who's then going to work out the design for the structure. So your foundations, your columns, your beams, that kind of stuff, your roof, your slabs, and so forth. That is costed together with what the architect has designed is costed, and what other work that needs to happen, earthworks or whatever, it gets costed. That's part of our role as the project managers. Being able to procure, here's the biggest role, is being able to procure the capable, competent hands that will be able to deliver the project. Whether it's electrician, whether it's plumber, guys who are going to build, or specialists, whether you're doing aircons, you're doing, he mentioned underfloor heating, but being able to procure the right resources, being able to procure the right materials at the right time, being able to plan out your project and scope it from day 1 to day 32 or to day 92 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And it's precise, such that the client is able to say, I'm starting my project on the 1st of April. I'll move into my house on the 1st of December.
Yeah.
And that's what we do to ensure and to give you certainty, to give you peace of mind. Effectively, what we are as project managers is we stand in your stead within the whole project. We become you because we understand what you want, okay, and we understand the built environment, and therefore we coordinate everybody else that's supposed to deliver your project. And yes, you can look at that and you say, but it's going to cost me more. And that's the point I was trying to say, that it doesn't. The saving that we provide and the value that we provide pays for itself. So it's not an additional cost, okay, on your project. It's just peace of mind. It gives you joy to build, and the quality is good. The budget is managed, and it's done on time. That's really what our role is.
And I think the nice thing about what you're saying with the quality of the build, it also helps the client and me when it comes to the fact if they need to resell the property. I think the resale is such an issue because you'll find a client didn't do the right steps and get a project manager, done it by themselves. Halfway you were using the right material, then halfway down the line you started using cheaper material. And then your property, starts dilapidating. There's things such as your what do they call this thing, man? Sorry, it slipped my mind. Your damping, yes. You find situations such as damping and stuff like that, And then what I've noticed when it comes to the resale of a property, if a person does need to resell, it's always a huge discussion when it comes to how much they had paid for the property or how much they used to build for the property. And if the property was in the shape that it needed to be and things were done in the right way, the property condition is still in the right way, it would be justifiable for the price that they're looking for, you know. But most of the time, I feel like clients will just look at the fact of how much they've spent, not actually factoring in that there is issues with the house and the next purchaser who's coming in to buy your house has to fix those certain things that were not done right. You know, I've seen people literally rip out the whole wall just to sort out a damping situation, you know. So I think that's a nice thing that you're saying, like with quality of product and quality finishes, you know, it's very important in a house. And you do need to consider these factors. I feel like people out there don't really consider those big factors, like what if I want to resell, you know. A person will always look at, and there was actually one of my clients that actually told me, said how he looks at things, and when he always buys houses, he doesn't do what he wants, he does what's generally people like and what he likes as well in terms of the general population, and then he'll add his own touches here and there, due to the fact that he knows that if he's in a situation that things don't go well and he needs to sell the house needs to be able to be sold, you know. And I don't know how you feel about that, but that's something that he said, and I think it's true. I would like that as well, to have a house that I know is not too much. You know, you do find houses that there's just too much that's been done to it, and it doesn't work out. And I think also, Tinash, you can also jump in from the architectural point of view as well. As an architect, can't you also advise your clients in terms of after sale? Yes, they're not thinking about it in the moment of building or in the moment of all that stuff. But as architects, do they advise clients to be like, also think about the after if you want to sell at a later stage and things like that?
No, true. That's definitely a conversation we have with clients. An analogy we always have is, look, design and aesthetic is no different from fashion.
Okay.
For you to
Have you had objections when it comes to that? Like a person saying, "Don't tell me, it's my money."
So it's how you couch it. It's not a matter of saying I don't do it, but it's just to advise to say, look, you are building this kind of house. In the event that your cash flows are negatively impacted and you need to dispose of it,
Yes.
if you are invested in it, then your ROI might be less.
Might be less, yeah.
But it's, at the end of the day, it's your decision. But it's a discussion that we would have had. So at the back of your mind, you know that there's that risk that
Okay.
you don't want to.
And on your side, Mandla?
Yeah, I was going to say, if houses could speak, in other words, the houses that have been built,
Yeah.
if they could speak, they would tell you stories of how many times maybe a wall has been shifted or has had to be rebuilt, or some of the plumbing pipes have leaked inside the pipes, or how they've had to shift the footprint of the house because the setting out wasn't right, or what trouble the client had with the builder. In other words, the house was meant to be finished in December. It eventually got finished in May, and they moved in June, and they had several problems for months before they could really enjoy their house. When somebody then comes into that house and they look at it and they think, oh, wow, it's a beautiful house, it doesn't tell the story. And that's why at the end of the day, when they're selling the house, they're selling what it actually cost them and also the pain that they went through. And they're thinking, no, I went through a lot, so therefore. So that's why we're saying it is very important to ensure that you've got the right hands and you've got the right guidance and the right professionals, because the valuation of your house, because that's when you make your money. You make your money when you buy your stand and when you build.
Yeah.
And if you build at a reasonable price, at a good price, that's relative. That's adding value to your property. And therefore, when you sell, you're not negotiating. Somebody walks in, if the design is right and it's built properly and it's built for the right price. Because the building for the right price, you can't see it. Only the seller knows. And that's the importance of having the right professionals on the job. I was just going to say, if you look at a lot of commercial buildings, industrial buildings, hospitality buildings, I don't think there's any of those that are built without a project manager on site. And the role of the project manager is to stand in the stead of the client, because the client has got competence in another field of work. You need somebody that's going to be your person. And it doesn't happen a lot within the residential space. And I think that's something that's missing.
Okay.
And the reason being, residential, if you include an additional professional, it becomes expensive. The model that we've worked on shows that it isn't actually.
Okay.
You make a saving, as we've said.
And then just to quickly jump in with Mandla, before you take it to Nash, I just want to find out, do you feel in terms of the residential side not knowing about it, is that more towards the consumer themselves or the project manager? Just to find out, who do you feel is not doing the extra step or going the extra step? Is it the consumer not doing the extra step to say, let me actually get a project manager involved? Or is it the project manager not actually branching themselves out as much to consumers within the residential spaces?
Look, my experience has shown that it's both. It's a bit of both.
Okay.
Where project managers traditionally
Yeah.
within the country have never really ventured into that space because of budget constraints. Remember, in these projects, it's me who's building, so therefore I want to build for as little as possible. Now you want to bring in a project manager who's going to add a percentage. So the system or the framework has not always allowed for that additional cost. But there's ways in which you can do it such that it's not an additional cost, and being able to prove value and to give value to the project.
Yeah, just my 2 cents on that is that obviously involving any professional comes at a cost.
Yeah.
And from a client's point of view, the mindset needs to shift in terms of what value are you getting it and what cost do you subscribe to that price. So speaking to what Mandla is saying, you've got the deadline you wanted to move in by December, but you've moved in June.
In June, yeah.
So all of those costs that you've had to carry by doing all of that.
And it's a hefty cost. Let's be honest. It's very hefty.
If you're renting, then you've added rent. You're
There's still
you're still
levies.
paying on the bond and you haven't moved in, levies and all of that. So
It's
as a total cost, you'd have said, yes, I'm not paying the professionals, but you've paid for it somehow in some shape.
in the long run, yeah.
And speaking to the commercial projects that he's talking to, those things have deadlines. If the sign goes up to say Mall of Africa should be up and running by 2025 in March, you're guaranteed that's going to happen, and there are penalties involved if you don't achieve those deadlines.
Those deadlines.
So the commercial side of it understands that the time element of it has a cost to it, but with residential, unfortunately, because there's emotions involved, you then don't tend to see the wood from the trees.
So I'm just going to ask you, before we get sidetracked, back to the questions. One of the questions that I thought I should ask you is, what are some of the current trends in residential or commercial architects that homeowners or property investors should be aware of?
Okay. I think sustainability is front and center.
Okay.
The load shedding has definitely made alternative energy something you'd need to be considering. So we're finding that more and more of the houses that you're building, solar is no longer a must-have. Is not so your solar paneling is no longer nice to have, but
It's a must-have now. Yeah.
Must-have.
True.
But over and above that as well, in terms of lifestyle and sustainability, just to sidetrack.
Yeah.
So the wife runs a farm a flower farm in Midvaal.
Okay.
And she's growing like seasonal flowers. And you find that people are more in touch with nature. People are actually concerned about what their footprint in terms of your built footprint.
Okay.
So it's not just the lip service to say sustainability, but it's actually a way of life, be it organic.
True.
So we just need to be mindful of how you build. So much so that how it's also even playing out, you find that houses are now right-sized. Whereas before, you would probably be judging the quality of a house by the size. The bigger it was, but the better it is.
The better it is, yeah.
But now you find that clients actually saying, no, look, I'm building for me, and I don't necessarily need to be worried about how big or how flamboyant.
I think for me personally, I've noticed that especially in estates, more often than outside of the estate. I think outside the estate, you still do have those people who feel bigger is better. But in estates, I just feel it's more practicality for them, you know. It's those people that are very savvy. They don't want many guests. Yes, they have functions here and there once in a blue moon. You know, I've also had times where a lot of people say, no, I'll never move into an estate. There's too much rules. But when I look at the people inside the estate, they're fine with those rules. They're absolutely okay with it. They don't have any stress. Do I feel like there's certain things that can be changed? Yes, but those are things that we can look at in the future, you know. So I like in terms of what you said as well, in terms of the practicality of the solar. With that, do you feel that that requires more spacing into a property or not? How I know with batteries and things like that, I know the solars you don't need spacing. You can just put that on the roof. That's not an issue. But with your batteries and stuff, would you need more spacing than under roof?
No, not really. So to speak to the panels themselves, so there's optimum orientation that you need to be considering for your panels. So in as much as you're placing them on the roof, but if they're placed facing the wrong way, you're actually not going to get the maximum benefit of that. So that as well speaks to your design, that your panels need to face a certain way, and they need to tilt at a certain angle. So ideally, you'd want that to be incorporated into the design, so that it's not looking like it's something that's tacked in.
That's not part of the plan type
It's
of
not-
thing.
So if you're using that fashion analogy, you want your solar panel to just be like a pocket where you can't actually see. You can't distinguish between where does the house end and where does this. It's integrated into that.
Okay.
And another issue as well for the sustainability, I think the regulations are slowly pushing us towards there.
Okay.
In that now you've got your national building regulations where, in terms of your water heating, so half of what you're for residential, half of how you heat the water that you're using cannot be through electrical means. It must be through other means.
Wow.
So that's
I
legislation.
never knew that.
So which means that you for every new build, which means that you now need to be incorporating either heat pumps or solar water solar panels for that, or gas. So that's another thing that's also pushing us towards sustainability.
Okay.
And I think in terms of like your traditional build as well for the sustainability, look, there are passive and active ways in which you can make sure that your building doesn't consume as much energy. So if you're speaking of maybe how to heat or how to cool, the easiest solution would be, let's just slap in an aircon, and then we're over and done with it. That would be your active. But passively, you'd say, how do you ventilate this room? If you've got a window there and you've got another window there, open those windows, ta-da, you've got a cool breeze and you're ventilating it. So that speaks to the design, and which is where we would also be coming in. And in terms of your construction as well, there are construction means in which you can insulate your building in terms of how you build, whether you're using your cavity walls, or again, if the room is facing the correct size. So that then speaks to your design, and that your design element, your house needs to be oriented in the correct direction.
Okay.
And then all of these passive cumulatively over time, you find that your bills will be significantly reduced.
Okay. I'm gonna ask you guys just a question, and then we'll just pass it to Mandla. No, just before Tinashe, can I just ask you all quickly? It's a quick one. What do you enjoy more, designing outside an estate or inside? And I'm gonna come back to you with the same question. What do you prefer more, being a project manager inside an estate or outside? On your side, what do you prefer more? What do you enjoy more? Obviously, you have to do
I
everything.
enjoy both. So every challenge presents a unique way of getting a solution. So I do not see it as an issue designing in an estate. It just means that you've got a different set of challenges that you need to deal with.
Does that drive you? Does it push you more? Like for me, I like challenging
So it
situations.
pushes me differently.
Okay.
So if you're designing outside of the estate, you also then deal with a different set of challenges,
Yeah.
which would be pushing you differently.
Okay. And Amanda, on your side?
Yeah, so I look in general, what I enjoy about the space of project management is the fact that each project is unique.
Yes, definitely.
And so it being in an estate is a certain uniqueness to it, it being outside, and each one, comes with its own intricacies and so forth. So it's for me, it's not about I enjoy this one more or I enjoy that one less.
Okay.
It's about, what's the uniqueness that this project brings. And we deal with it
One step at a time.
Yeah, one step at a time.
So your question that I actually wanted to ask you is, how do you approach project planning and execution in the dynamic and often unpredictable real estate market?
Yeah, look, it is an unpredictable market, but we found that, sticking to just basic and simple things is what works. In other words, understanding what the client requirements are and scoping that project very well right from the beginning. By that, I'm saying being very clear in terms of managing the client's expectation, because that's really what we're there for, to ensure that what the client expects is what we deliver and we manage that process. So it's just being able to scope it and to manage it properly as you go along. The communication is critical. And that's why you'll find that on our projects, we insist on face-to-face meetings
Okay.
on a weekly or on a 2-weekly basis. What that does is it gets you to get onto the site and feel for the site because it's live, get to see what's happening. And if there's challenges, you're able to think about them because you're there.
Yeah, you can tackle them on the spot.
Precisely. And also use quite a bit of technology as well. So that also helps the whole process. Yeah.
Okay. So Tinashe, on your side, I just want to kind of ask you another question that I feel a lot of people could take from this is that could you provide some examples of innovation solutions implemented in your project to overcome challenges or meet specific client needs?
Okay, so I think the early example I used where clients would have a bad user experience with a product, which makes them averse to any solution. I think we had that particularly with gas. There was a real aversion to adopting gas because you've had an experience where it was either improperly installed and explosions and all of that.
Yeah.
And then you just need to educate your clients to say, look, with your gas installation, it comes with your COCs. You need to get the right people to do it in terms of the appliance that you're buying as well. And this is how it needs to be installed. And you link them up with the people who've successfully used that. The other example was for the fireplace, where you've had a client who really had a genuinely bad experience growing up. So with them, if you're saying fireplace, it's soot.
It's like,
And then do you then you can ask a simple question: do you realize that you actually need to maintain and clean out soot in your chimney? And you'd be surprised that people don't actually realize that no, the soot actually builds up, and if it's not being cleaned, then
I never knew that. I just know a fireplace. Hey, when it's cold, I switch that on and we're nice. I don't think about those things, and it's a nice thing to know about.
So as well, not all products are also going to be equal. So if you're going to be procuring a fireplace from down the street, is different from what you're purchasing from a reputable brand. And again, not all woods are equal. You get woods which burn differently. So what you're using for a braai will be different from what you're using for heating.
For heating, yeah.
So you then just be educating the client to say, okay, we understand this is the bad user experience, but at that time, were you aware of this? Were you aware of that? Were you aware of this? And then you kind of want to just break through that through education. But if you're not successful, then maybe you're proposing alternative solutions to say, okay, if not that, then this could be something which could achieve the same purpose. But done differently. Then as well, in how we've done innovative solutions is just through basic design and common sense. So you might have your property orientation facing, I'll call it the wrong way. So,
Okay.
and the client would say, look, I want my living spaces facing north, and that's not negotiable. But then the north itself maybe is presenting a different set of challenges in that it's facing the road. And like you're saying, in an estate,
Privacy,
in an estate, you've got guidelines where you can't have boundary walls and all of that. So now you're dealing with privacy.
Yes.
You deal with that. So you're now facing the road and you've got privacy and a little bit of landscaping. If you put hedge in and all of that, then can create a nice buffer where you actually not seeing that. So I think with the tools that we now have, you can actually be physically showing the client that in terms of virtual reality to say this is what this
The
is
idea.
this is the idea, this is how it's going to be looking like, and then that can help explain.
I just wanted to find out, actually, while we're still on that, in terms of the tools that you use, I've noticed that if a client is selling a vacant land and it has plans, and they present me with the plans, are the renders a separate pricing? Because I've noticed some clients don't have renders, like they only have the plans itself. And then I'll meet other clients who have the plans and the renders. So is that like a separate thing, or it doesn't come all together, I'm presuming?
It doesn't come all together. So your photorealistic renderings, like the hyper real, where it looks real, that would be a separate price. But like your design renders, where you're communicating the idea, that's included. Because remember, your client is a layperson who can't read architectural plans.
Yes.
So you would do your ordinary design render to explain to them that this is what that looks like. It doesn't necessarily need to be photorealistic. So speaking to what Mandla was saying, in the residential space, we find that the photorealistic renders, that's good, but sometimes the pricing versus what you want to achieve, it might not be the best option to be going for you. Whereas your design renders, where we're trying to explain the idea, might be just what's good for you. So it might be nice to have, but
is it essential?
There's no value in doing that.
Okay. Mandla, I'm keen for this because I kind of also want to understand this question a bit more. What strategies do you employ to ensure that real estate projects stay on track and in terms of timeline and budgets?
Yeah, that's why initially I'd mentioned the issue of the joy of having technology around.
Yes.
So there's software that we can use to ensure that you get alarms, you are able to track your costings up to a certain point, you're able to do cash flows, you are able to plan when you need specific resources, when you need specific materials, when you need to order stuff. So we use software, plus obviously the basic knowledge that we have of how to run these projects. That's what you kind of put together. But I think there's no strategy that would work without involving a client at every stage of that project. And there's no strategy that will be successful without being transparent. So we try and be as transparent as possible in everything that is done. And then obviously the issue I spoke about, and I push this a lot, is that when you do a project, it's got to be collaborative. So whoever is a stakeholder needs to be involved at almost every stage, and there needs to be knowledge of what is going on. So we the strategy is, it's our knowledge, understanding of the project and the construction process, plus the use of technology and collaboration.
With your collaboration, do you feel that realtors also need to be collaborative, or is it just you guys as per se? We should just sell and then give it to you guys, or do you feel that maybe before the sale, if maybe we can get a different perspective? For example, let's say I'm doing an appointment, and then if you guys are not busy on your busy schedules, come with me with the clients, and then as the client has any concerns or issues, maybe you can discuss it. Do you feel that would be an idea, or do you feel we should just sell and just give it to you guys?
No, I think collaboration needs to happen right from the top. Okay. Because we're dealing with the one client, and we've just got to step into the client's mind for a while.
Yeah.
When the client decides to go and procure a property or a piece of land,
yes.
they effectively know what they want at the end of the day. So if they then take that and they break it up into bits and pieces, it's like a broken telephone where some of the stuff is lost in between as you move from this one person to the other. But if we all do it together, and that's why the collaboration comes in. And over time, if you work with a group of people, then you kind of work with those people all the time. And I think it's critical, right, from the top. You bring in whoever the stakeholders are. And as Tinashe said, sometimes they may like the piece of land because it's the right size.
Yeah.
But because of what they want, they're envisioning, it may not be, suitably located, and the orientation may be wrong. And that's where the architect comes in. And also understanding what their budget is and what they want to build, that's where we come in. So collaboration is important because you minimize or you mitigate that risk of having the wrong piece of land and then end up building something that you didn't want to build because the orientation is wrong.
I like that you also said that, because I feel also with realtors, it also helps us also understand it a little better. Because as a realtor that doesn't understand the processes like you guys are discussing, I can just easily, if a client says I want a corner stand and not understanding their vision and anything, I can be like, okay, cool, let's just do the deal. But if now I can have the understanding and kind of know the client's vision as well, I can direct it in a way to say, okay, I understand you want a corner stand, but this is more practical for you. You saying that you want your rooms north facing and this and certain things like that, So I think it is maybe something in the future we can look into.
Yeah, just adding on to, like you're saying, the client would say they want a corner stand for whatever
reason
that they want. I think as a realtor, and I'll use this example of the first realtor, our first purchase. The lady eventually referred us to another realtor because we explained to her, this is what we want, this is what the budget is, and she's like, look, in terms of what I have in stock and what you're looking for, I don't think I'm going to be able to help you. And pointed us in the right direction. And so much so that even for the second purchase, you would still contact her and say, look, we didn't eventually have a deal with you, but the education that I received and the fact that you were also prepared to say, look, my best interests, what are your best interests? And if at that point in time, it means that we can't be having a deal, that's fine. You're prepared to let that go as well.
I think that also comes from a point of realtors only seeing past the commission. They don't see past that. There's still clients, and I'm one person who should certainly fix some of my issues when I was starting in this game. Where it's not just okay, the keys. I give you the keys and I'm done. I'll still be involved into your life. And this is something that I've enhanced more last year and this year, that I want to be more involved. Just taking that small extra step to just find out, even if it's 6 months past registration, how's the house? Are you good? Everything's fine. You don't get that a lot anymore, Once those keys are yours, the issues are yours, everything is yours, you don't get that extra service. And I think that comes to the point of also us agents cutting corners. You're not giving that extra service, So I just also want to ask you a question. I know our time is not on our side, but just to kind of scam through all of these, from your perspectives, what are some common mistakes homeowners make when renovating or designing their properties?
So I'll split it between renovations and new builds.
Yeah.
But with all of this, it's always budget. So budget is not a swear word.
Trust me, it is in our world.
We need to get past that. It's a constraint which we just need to manage properly. So it's not a reflection on you or anyway. If your professionals are asking you for a budget, it just helps us to frame the solution better. So and your budget is then ordinarily tied to your scope. So we've had projects where the client came in with the budget, we aligned the scope, and we realized that with this scope, we won't be able to achieve. What did it then do? Then we split the project into 2 phases. So you're still able to come in, stay in the estate, and then you do the phase one. But the phase one is complete. You can't even tell that there's going to be a phase two. And when you do the phase two, it's also going to integrate nicely. That's one way of looking at it. Or having done that exercise, then the client says, you know what, I'm probably better off buying off shelf, and that's fine. At least you're making an educated decision going forward.
No, I think that's so true as well, and that's why on my side I like giving a client options. A client needs to have options and understand the options. I think that's the thing. You can't just give a client options and not make them understand it. So that's why for most times, even if a client tells me they want to buy a house within the estate, I'll still show them vacant lands and show them the cost price towards everything to kind of make them understand that you have options here. So decide what you want, because you will find most of the time with the clients that I've had, they like, but now 6 out of 10 things check out. So I tell them, listen, my rule is that if it's not 8 out of 10 things that check out, go somewhere else. Because you will never find a 10 out of 10 house. Because you have to enter that house and make your own changes to make it that 10, So I like the fact that, saying that and giving a client options and making them understand, not all the time is it the best option to build. Not all the time is it the best option to buy a full built home, You just need to look at the situation on hand and what makes sense for you financially and what makes sense for you longevity-wise as well. And people just sometimes just don't think about that. Like they sucked into this world. I can't even explain what it is, where it's just like, we're doing this for now and now. Listen, it helps. It definitely, I've seen it help, but sometimes you just need to hold the brakes a little bit and actually really think about this, because this is a very big investment. It's the hugest investment that can actually give you returns on interest as well, So those are certain things that I say people out there need to really, really think about. And then Mandla, just the last question for you. Can you share any tips or best practices for realtors who might be overseeing their small-scale real estate projects? So looking into becoming a project manager moving from real estate to project manager.
Yeah, I think it's important that realtors firstly understand the process of building a house. So you've got to be able to run through that process, and when you understand what is involved on a day-to-day basis, then one is then able to then step back and say, I can manage at least this process, and then I manage the next process. That's on a practical site kind of level. But other than that, I think getting an academic qualification within that space is also quite critical, because it's a very broad subject. As I've said, it deals with costs, it deals with budgets, it deals with quality, and there's no way you can judge quality if you don't understand the process. So there's quality management in that, and it also deals with obviously time management. So you've got to understand that this task should take so many people so long, and therefore it's going to cost so much. So it's a combination of understanding, being practical, and also getting some academic backing on that as well.
Okay, so on my side, guys, I enjoyed this segment. I really enjoyed it. Thank you again, Tinashe and Mandla. Before I end off the podcast, I'd just like for you guys to basically have a look at the camera, tell people about you and where they can find you. Social media is perfect. If you have any social media handles, please tell them where to find you. For the people watching who's saying, you know what, I really want to make a change and do things the right way, this is the best place to start in my way. So, Tinashe, you'll be the first one, and then we'll just take it on to Manja, and then I'll take it away and end us off.
Okay, no, thanks for that. So you can reach us. You can reach us at our Instagram handle at synthesis_architecture. That's at synthesis_architecture. The website, we're still cooking it. Watch this space. Reach us out and let's chat.
Thank you. So again, the name, Mandla Danisa, your project manager. Our company is 4 Square. Projects Group. And our website is Foursquare Projects. The 4 is the number, which means solid. It's Foursquare, and all the socials, it's Foursquare. Thank you.
Okay. And then do you guys, just before I end, do you guys feel you guys will ever have a collaboration in like one company, and then maybe Stoic can in-house you guys? Who knows?
Look, we met a few years back, yeah?
Almost a decade ago.
It is a decade ago, yeah. So we've been throwing things at each other. So if there's project management stuff that needs to be done, or some costing or things like that, I work with him. If there's design work that I need, and I need an architect. So I think we've moved that step. So the next step, is sitting in the same office.
I like that. I think from that perspective, we'll definitely even hear from the viewers. Do you feel that we should have a collaboration as well with Stoic, in-house, and everything is done under one roof and make everything simple? I think that's the best way to go. But again, guys, thank you so much for coming through. It means a lot to me. I've learned so much. I hope everyone out there has learned a lot as well. And yeah, these are Chats with Your Realtor. This is your favorite realtor here now speaking. And see you soon on the next episode. If you want to see them again, please just put it in the comments, and they'll definitely be here again. If you need any questions, please do let us know. Like I say, and like I always say, much love.